kind of take you all back to like what it was like that morning. you know, because that's a question that a lot of people ask me. They ask me about prison, but what actually led to it? And I never forget. It was about I guess about 6:30 in the morning, and they had the fugitive task force, so they be having U.S. Marshals and all them ATF and all them with them and stuff like that, along with the Baltimore City Police. And I was kind of living on the Baltimore County line, so the county police was there as well. So what they did, it was kind of amazing. And now in hindsight, I really see that they wanted to take me alive, right? But I believe it was only because the feds was there that they actually wanted to take me alive, right?
I don't mean to stop you, but let's go back just a little tiny bit further before that, like the hunt that led up to them to come and get you.
Well, the hunt that led on, which you mean, far as
Like what led
the
them to be,
crimes.
like I mean, why they like had you on their hit list, like we got to get him, and
Well,
and and and, and, and the better two what they want, how they want to get you.
well, they really put some effort into it, but to them, it started being personal, right? I had been locked up for this murder, this attempted murder, this and that, and witnesses was always coming up missing, or they found out that they was high. They remembered that they was high when they gave their statement, and they really didn't know what they were saying. And it was a number of excuses. So I kept on, beating these charges to the point that the ones that I actually got convicted for, they just really had people in there this straight line.
Because they wanted you so bad at
Yeah,
this point now because of the other charge you beat.
right. Because I had beat charges and stuff before. I never forget it. Um, when you well, they used to. I don't know if they still do it, but when you had a murder, you still had to go to a preliminary hearing and stuff like that. And I never forget it that this state's attorney, she just knew, boy, she had me. She just knew she was smiling. She had a stack of folders and she had witnesses sitting over there. And so by the time we get in there, the witness was like, yeah, I made a mistake. That wasn't him. Right? It was somebody else. I thought it was him because, he had on, I think she said the same shirt or something like that. And the case ended up getting dismissed. Man, she slammed the file of folders on the table. I'm telling you, hey man, I was a little frightened. I had to say I was a little frightened. I thought she would get ready, man, jump on me or something, man. So it had became personal for a lot of them because I kept on beating these charges, beating these charges, right? And it got to the point like they was harassing. I used to mess with a young lady by the name of Tia Woods back then, and it was it was it was wild because they used to try to threaten her, and they used to like make her cry. Come in because they be like, "Hey, look, you might as well start looking for another boyfriend because we killing him." Like we ain't no arrest. Only how he getting arrested if he come turn himself in. Other than that, we killing him, and they would scare her like that. And I used to be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. They just talk, right? And but it was to the point that it became personal. I think because I didn't necessarily have a fear of the police, right? Because back then, of course, now I'm much different. I have a much different mindset. But back then, I used to look at the situation where like he got a gun, I got a gun. It looked like all is even to me, right? So that's how I kind of looked at a lot of things. So it was like it started making it personal, and then it really started causing them to lie. But one of the ways how they did catch me, they had it was a dude. He was the head of the firearms. He was the head firearms examiner in the state of Maryland, and he hooked up with a FBI agent, and they came up with this computer called Drug Fire. The computer actually was in popular mechanics and everything. And what the computer did was it, like, say if you known for carrying a 9 millimeter or 45 or Glock 40, this and that, any crimes that happened in that city, those sort of bullets was carried, was used, right? Shell cases was found. They would automatically feed this into the computer and into the computer to try to match them to see if you had did them as well. And on top of that, it would kind of like, it would almost kind of anticipate your moves, like what you might do next. Your likes and dislikes. One of the things I did coming up, well, back then, I never came home the same way twice in a row. I mean, like, ever. Right? If I had to catch a bus, no matter what it was, I never came home twice. I mean, the same way twice in a row, because I had such a fear of somebody probably, following me home and killing me. And not even so much as for myself. Back then, like I said, I was dealing with a young lady that I had loved, and I didn't want, anything to happen to her. Right. And as well, I used to have my son, during the summer times, and I used to have him with me, so I couldn't never leave danger back to my house, to my home. But I had guys that I grew up with, and some guys I even worked for, right? As far as on the bodyguard tip or on the henchman tip, and they didn't even know where I lived at. I would tell them, hey man, meet me at the third phone booth around the corner. If you go left, you go went too far. But that's how I did things back then. Because you really couldn't get caught slipping. And
So,
far as, huh?
go ahead. You want to say something? I actually, once you finish talking, I
Yeah, far as like getting back to when they came to get me, it was like a situation, man, where in hindsight it was slick. I got to give it to them. Right? What they did was they got the gas electric company to turn out all the gas electric in the house, right? And we was renting, so they went and got the key from the rental office instead of kicking the door in. But that's the reason why I said I knew they were trying to take me alive, because they knew that would have instantly been a shootout. So when they when they came in, and I never forget it, man. Because like the day before that, guys had tried to do a drive-by on me, and they was dressed up as the knockers, right? What most young kids know now is 12 and shit like that. They were dressed up as the knockers. So, but they didn't like have an actual police uniform on. They had these like fake looking badges, and I never forget it. I'm out there, this girl is talking to me, and I see them come. I'm in an apartment building. I just give one of my little henchmen my guns. I say, "Here, take this in the house. I'm right behind you." Right? 'Cause I used to always be known for carrying two guns. So when I when I seen them coming around the corner, I said, "Well, for drug police don't really mess with me." I said, "If it ain't homicide or affairs, I ain't really worrying about them." Right? So I'm sitting out there still talking to the girl, and the only thing that saved me was that the dude that was in the lead car, because they had the chains on with the badges hand on the chain, but it wasn't the police. It was actually the dude that just had a hit out on me. And the only thing that saved me was that the dude in the front passenger side, he was leaning out the window, and he had his shade glass on. He smiled, and I seen all the goals in his mouth, and I knew it was a hit. Right. So, and that's when they overfire and all that. But luckily, I only got grazed across the eye right at this time. But like it was things like that where police just really hated me, you know, cause I guess they put in so much effort to frame me and stuff like that, and it still wasn't working. You know, they even went as far as one time is my god brother, and they know my god brother. He was real dear to me, and they had trumped up some charges on him, and they had arrested me again, but they know they didn't really have anything, and so when they basically came and told me like, look, boy, you can either take this what we got on you now. We know it ain't nothing, but we'll let him go. And I was actually getting ready to do that, to cut him loose, man, because they wanted me that bad. But it's like I said, it was one of them things, man, where anything that happened, it seemed like, especially in West Baltimore, I was getting accused of it.
They said you did it.
Yeah, they were saying I did it, and I had to have like almost Jesus Christ coming in, like, no, he was with me, man, at the time. Like, and it was getting bad because it was that bad. It was trying to get me and a few of my homeboys. Some of them is actually still doing life now, right? But it was like it was such a determination, and because they were saying, "Hey, man, we was kidnapping witnesses and things like that." None of this was ever proven, right? But they was saying that, man, that's how witnesses was being threatened, witnesses was being kidnapped and sent out of town and stuff like this. Like I said, again, none of this was ever proven, right? But it was the thing, man. I said that I only seen my life, turning out two different ways. As far as when I was, really embracing to that life and that lifestyle, rather. I knew that any day was a real possibility that my numbers was gonna get called, right? Somebody was just gonna somebody who I never expected or something like that, or somebody probably was close to me, right? But I said either that or I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. I didn't see my life being no other way than that.
And speaking of lifestyle, like how did you get introduced to it? How do you become or decide that this is what I want to do?
Well, honestly, man, like a lot of guys, they wanted to get into this lifestyle, but it was kind of forced on me, right, due to my circumstances. My parents died when I was at a really young age, and I was just into my teens. When I say just into my teens, and so her family, my mom's family, she set me down before she passed and was like, "Look, you got to learn to fend for yourself because when I'm gone, my family's not gonna be there for you." And me personally, I just thought it probably was just the pain of the cancer had her talking like that. But lo and behold, she was right. And it was like a thing where she always told me, just survive. By any means, survive. And that's what I did. So this lifestyle, because, even at that younger age, when you have family not taking you in and things like that, I had to like grow up like really overnight, like literally overnight. So you get to the point that you just go into such a survival mode. So then, I met a guy. He couldn't have been probably no more than about 2, 3 years older than me at best. But he was kind of way before his time, and he basically used to just see me and be like, "Man, every time I see you, man, you sitting on this bus stop, this and that." And he was like, "Man, what you be doing out here in the streets?" I said, "Man, I'm just surviving." And so he said, "Surviving?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just surviving." And so he sat in there and said, "Well, man, look, I'm gonna teach you a way to survive." And that's how it all started. You know, he taught me, like I said, he taught me how to be a hitman in every sense of the word. He taught me how to talk to people, to get them to trust me. He taught me how to like the different sounds at night when you walking on different grounds and the pattern and stuff, so you can know where the other person is at if you couldn't see him. Um, the different breakdowns of guns, the importance of the sights on the guns, and the one that taught me how to shoot, the one that taught me like, certain ways you carry your gun. So, it won't be, sticking in it as a bulge and things of that. And, he taught me patience, when it came down to that, because, it have been times that, I didn't laid out in the grassy field for like 2 days in a row. Like it's raining and everything. And I just laid out there waiting on somebody. So it's like, and he really taught me, like he said, man, look, you never give your gun to another man, not even me. He said, man, because your gun is what's going to help you eat. He said, it's what will protect you. He said, man, you get a family of your own. He said, it's what will feed your family. He said, man, the only time you should part with your gun is when you dead. And I kind of like, I live by those words all the way up until, like I said, I went to the penitentiary. It was like, I didn't do it as a go for bad thing or, man, I'm just tough and this and that. like I used to tell people surprised, and they used to be surprised. I said, man, the police gave me the name Frank Nitty, right? I didn't just get up one day and call myself Frank Nitty, right? But that's another story. But it's like the things that I did was like, man, I wanted to reconnect with my siblings. I wanted to reconnect with them. I wanted to, you know, be somewhere so I can, for they would be protected and things like that. So like I said, the game was kind of, it was kind of forced on me. But in the same token, when I embraced it wholeheartedly. Some dudes they get into it for the clothes, the women, the hood fame, and so forth and so on. Then none of that mean nothing to me. Yeah, I had all that, but that didn't mean nothing to me. It was like, man, I want to get out of this situation, reconnect with my siblings, and make sure that nobody that I ever cared for ever has to go through this again. And so, what people thought was going hard for me, it was me really being in survival mode and sheer determination and not to lose. So that's where a lot of that comes from. But
Let's go back to even like that morning when they did come with the feds in Baltimore County, Baltimore City, when all of them came. Was that the moment that you got your time, or you beat that charge again, or that was the time? That was it?
That started me when it let me get my time, and I never forget it. So they had me, my girlfriend, I believe my godmother was there, buddy of mine, actually one of my henchmen. He was there. Supposed to been there, but protected me because people, like I said, people had just tried to do a drive-by on me, right? And he was there to make sure that, if they knew where we lived at, then I would have help. So that morning, like when they had us there, they came in and got us, and you know, I never forget this. All I heard was, "Don't you fucking move." Don't you fucking move. I swear by God, I will put a bullet right in your fucking head. Don't you fucking move. And so when I heard this, I knew that it wasn't what kids would call today. I knew it wasn't an op. Cause the op wouldn't have gave me that chance. Right. So I knew it wasn't an op. And I remember the girl that I was dealing with. She was kind of laid on my chest. And when she kept on hearing them say, "Don't you fucking move." I swear if you fucking flinch, I'll put a fucking bullet right in your head. So she said, Boo, she said, tell him to stop playing. She thought it was my little henchman out there. And when they kind of like rushed the bed. Well, before they rushed the bed, because I used to always keep like guns underneath my mattress on my side or up underneath the pillow because of how I was living. You know, I expected somebody to come in there every day, right? So uh, I'll never forget it because she knew what I was getting ready to do. Because I kept on telling her, I said, man, I always know that if I ever go to prison, you know, they're never gonna let me out again. And I said, I'd rather go down there to blaze of glory. And at this time, you know, she was like, you know, whatever, you know, I'm being here. So, like you said, she was. I never forget it. She was laying on my chest, and when she see me put my hands behind my pillow, right, and she said, "No, no, no," and they grabbed up off me, and they kind of had her face down in the mattress in the pillow or whatever. And they had a gun to the back of her head. And then they had me down. They said, "Man," they said, "Frank Nitty, we finally got you. We finally fucking got you." And so they stood me up, and we all headed downstairs. They took us all down to the kitchen, and it was one detective that this dude was a real asshole because you would have to be an asshole to do something like this, you know, despite what you believe that I did, right, or what he believed that I did. He would show me pictures of the people like in with nothing wrong with them, and then he would say, "You know him?" And I'd be like, "Nah." He said, "Why?" Because the last time you seen him, he looked like this. And I was saying there, they'd be like, "No," and I'd be like, "What happened to him?" And he would sit on there and you know say little fucked up stuff to me and stuff like that. But I'm like, I don't know if he thought that I was somebody who was going to brag on that or whatever the case may be. But you know, I guess he was trying to provoke me, whatever the case was. I don't know. But you know, we went through that whole little process, and when they were taking us out, they split us up. We went into different vehicles and stuff like that, and pretty much I knew I was done. I knew I was done. Like basically, I was kind of hoping that they can get out, and it was to the point that I knew that I was done so much that I had a guy in there. Man, he's still a dear friend of me, and I won't mention his name because of what I'm about to say. But I was so convinced that I was done that I was going to take his charge so he could get out. I was going to confess to because he had a murder and I was going to confess to it. Right. It was a matter of fact, it was him and another guy. I was going to go and confess to the murders and say, "Look, man, they didn't do this. I did it." Right. Just to let them get out. Because I pretty much I said, man, I know I was washed up. But one of the things I can remember, you know, vividly, man, even after getting convicted, because you know, you go to what they call diagnostics. When I went to diagnostics, man, and waiting to go to the penitentiary, I used to see them almost daily bring people out in body bags. And I used to, man, I'll never forget that feeling, what it made me feel like. And I said, man, is that how I'm going to leave there?
Let me go back just a little further than that. Then like when they got to you in the court in your time, the time that you received, that he gave you when the judge see you, you got your time. What was the time he gave you?
He gave me a double natural life plus 141 years without the possibility of parole.
Okay. Now you go ahead and what's going on. I just want to go back to that. You know what I mean? The time that you got before you got into the penitentiary.
Yeah, but like when I was over diagnosis, man, it was like every I got the time, I never forget it because I went on lockup. I was trying to call my people to let them know, you know, the ones who didn't make it to court, like, look, this was going on. And this little mouthy guard, man, she said something. It was something smart, and I don't give a fuck who you is, this and that. And I turned around and I spit in her face. I'm like, bitch, get the fuck away from me. I'm on this fucking phone. So they let me finish using the phone. right? But they took me on lockup afterwards, right? But I remember sitting up there on lockup. I used to just be sitting on my bunk and just watching them bring out these body bags of people in them. I said, damn, man, that's how I'm going out. And I couldn't believe it. It was kind of, I was kind of in shock because I said, oh, man, when it came down to this lifestyle, I played by all the rules. Never told on nobody. I kept thinking about my homeboys, girls, and baby mamas and wives. I said, oh, this can't be how I am. But I won't be able to rap to y'all more. But we're running out of time. So, but I will say this, man, it's good to be back. I had to take another, small hiatus, but I'm gonna do as many as I can while I'm here, and but I'll be back soon. And for goodness sake, where's my female listeners at? I'm like, I don't hear from y'all no more. I don't get no messages. I'm like, goodness gracious, where's the love? So I'm looking forward to hearing from y'all and on some of the things I had to say and questions you ask. Y'all used to ask questions. I answer all questions. Good, bad, or indifferent. So until next time, peace.
Hey, God bless y'all. Appreciate you watching. Y'all know what it is. Silver Wolf TV. Y'all know I represent them gangsters. Peace.